Good evening, everyone. It's always a pleasure to be here, and it's always an honor for me to speak here on Mondays because, as I've mentioned before, I get the opportunity to share with you the study that I've done in order to put together this presentation. And I always make this plea, and I'll do it again. It's so important to read the works of the Spiritist doctrine. It's so important to learn the teachings of Jesus Christ, because the words that are contained within those works are the words that truly nourish and fill that existential void that so many of us have. And when we read those words and we learn about the truth of life and why we are here and our purpose on this earth, it really is truly a fulfilling sensation. And it makes me very happy to be able to bring the sensation that I have every time I read this, specifically the gospel, and share this sensation with you. So thank you very much for this opportunity. And today, I'd like to preface what I'm about to say with the following. This following explanation that I'm going to use, this allegory, is not to identify or define exactly what prayer is, but it is to materialize the idea of what prayer can be, to give us a rudimentary notion of what prayer is. And in order to do that, I want to talk about a specific geologic event that occurred at the end of the 19th century, precisely in 1883, from August 26th to August 27th. In Indonesia, there was a volcano that was pretty active during that time. The volcano is known as Krakatoa. And on August 26th and 27th, it became, if it works with me, it'll become active. Okay, just one moment, please. Okay, so I'm just trying to get the animation going. So it became active from the 26th to the 27th. And then finally it erupted. And this eruption was so great and so grand that it could be heard from 3,000 to 4,000 miles away. Anyone that was within a 10-mile radius of this explosion became instantly, or eruption, became instantly deaf. And the yield of this eruption was 13,000 times greater than the bomb that exploded in Hiroshima. So this was a great and very large event. Now, what happened to the sound? Why was the eruption so loud? What allowed it to travel so far away from the epicenter? The Earth, as we know, is covered by an atmosphere. We are surrounded by several layers of atmosphere. This atmosphere and this air allows sound to travel. The vibrations of this air causes the sounds that we hear. And this is precisely what happened in this eruption. We had the sound waves that were sent outward from its epicenter throughout the earth, and everyone was able to hear that. Now, why do I bring this to you, and why am I talking about this eruption? Well, if in the earth we are able to have this trans-atmospheric movement, this trans-atmospheric transfer, where the sound waves are able to travel and we are able to hear it from so far away, then there must be another medium or another mode in which the same can occur in space. And how is this possible? Well, Isaac Newton theorized something called the ether. And the ether is a principle that is in space or in the universe that allows light to be conducted and that allows the gravitational fields to function. This is the idea that Newton brought to us. And with Spiritism, Kardec told us about the cosmic principle. And the cosmic principle could be alluded to this ether. Humanity doesn't really know exactly what it is, but there's something that fills this immense void in the universe that allows things to travel through it. So the cosmic principle is necessarily this one fluid, this energy that surrounds us at all times in the universe and allows these things to be transferred through these huge distances that we can't even fathom. And now the fundamental basis of the Spiritist doctrine teaches us that we are spiritual beings. We are not a human body. We are a spiritual being inhabiting a human body in this existence. And precisely this puts us at a classification of a transdimensional being. In other words, we are not only limited to this dimension, we are unlimited. We basically ping pong back and forth. If you imagine a ping pong table, we ping pong back and forth from one dimension, from one realm to the other throughout our successive existences here on earth, and the time that we spent in erraticity, or the time that we spent in the world of causes, and the time we spent in the world of effects, cause and effect. And since we have this transatmospheric transfer that occurs on earth, there must be a transdimensional transfer that has to occur in the universe, because we are transdimensional beings. So there must be something that we are able to do that allows this particular thing to travel and connect itself to something else out in space, utilizing this medium, which is the cosmic principle or the ether. And what is that? Well, that's our thought. Precisely because we transcend this existence, we are able to emanate energies and thoughts that pierce through the limitation of the atmosphere that surrounds this planet and goes outwards into space and is carried further and further out depending on the level, on the frequency of that thought. If it is an elevated thought, it goes very far. If it is a mundane thought of something that we do in our daily lives, it's going to remain arrested and stuck and encaged in the prison of the earthly environment. So, as I had said, we have this transdimensional transfer that allows this thought, in essence, what is this thought? It's the prayer. Prayer is the one thing that truly is transdimensional, because prayer is that which connects us to the other dimension, that allows our thoughts to travel faster than the speed of light, instantaneously, to reach that other destination that it's supposed to be reaching, whether it is our Father in heaven or some other high superior spirit that we are praying to, a saint or something like that. So in the Gospel according to Spiritism, in chapter 27, in item 9, Allan Kardec explains to us this thought transfer in the following manner. Prayer is an invocation. Through prayer, we establish a mental relationship with the being we address. So we are calling for something. We are seeking something out. So imagine this cosmic Twitter. I think everybody's familiar with Twitter here. And each of us has a handle or a screen name in this cosmic Twitter. God is overseeing this entire Twitter at God. He's the one who takes care of everything. And we have our own handles. And we send out these tweets or these prayers or these thoughts, and we assign these tweets to a certain entity. It could be at St. Augustine, at some other saint. And they, hypothetically, will receive this, and you will see what it is that you're asking for in your prayer. So this is a crude analogy, but I think it gets the point across. And of course, we have also the function of the hashtag, which is an algorithm that displays a trending terminology that is occurring at that moment in Twitter. So you could say hashtag gratitude, hashtag love, thank you, hashtag something else. And whatever's trending, God will see, and everything will be worked in this manner. And that's what causes this interconnection between everything in the universe. A prayer may have the purpose of asking for something, giving thanks, or praising. The prayers we address to God are heard by spirits who are responsible for executing God's will. So this is the intermediary. Before you reach the CEO of this cosmic Twitter, you're going to have to speak first to his workers, who are going to then receive this message, and then, and only then, they will do what is in accordance with the divine statutes, with what this cosmic entity wants done, because they're manifesting this divine will. They're not going to simply act without the authority of the divine one. And that's why prayer has to be sincere and filled with love, because if it isn't, your tweet is not going to go very far. It will not trend. So the prayers that we address to good spirits are referred to God. When someone prays to beings other than God, these beings serve as mediators or intercessors, since nothing can happen outside of God's will. All right, so we have a basic understanding of what prayer may be. And we have to disconnect prayer from the religious prayer. Because too many people, us specifically, we associate prayer with something that is religious. Prayer is nothing more than a simple conversation. A conversation you have with your loved ones, your mother, your father, when you thank them for something, when they're there for you, that is a prayer. So it is simple. It is not something that has to be done in a mosque, in a synagogue, in a church. It can be done at any moment, at any time, as long as it is sincere, as long as it is based on love. And how is it that we should pray? What did our Christ teach us about prayer? How should we conduct a prayer, this exchange of communication? How should we tweet to God? And he said in Matthew 6:5-8, "And when you pray, do not be like the hypocrites, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues and out on the street corners to be seen by men. I tell you the truth, they have received their reward in full." Now, what kind of prayer is that? That is an egocentric prayer, an egotistical prayer, a geocentric prayer akin to when humanity thought the earth was the center of the universe. Instead, we need to have a heliocentric prayer when we realize that we are not the center of the universe. This is a prayer filled with pride. Here I am, people on the streets, listen to me, to my beautiful exhortations as I sing this wonderful religious hymn, and pay attention to me because I know what I'm saying, I know what I'm talking about. You don't have to pray, just listen to my words, even though you don't understand them, and at the end, say amen. And they're getting their just rewards, because what reward are they seeking in these types of prayers? Attention. That's what they're getting, and that's what they're receiving. So they are getting their reward in full, because people did stop, and today we still do stop when we hear somebody say a beautiful prayer in a foreign language or singing some kind of religious passage. So this is what Jesus was talking about here in this particular part of this passage. So I tell you the truth, they have received the reward in full. But when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father who is unseen. Does this mean that we need to isolate ourselves to go pray? No. This simply means that we shouldn't make it an ostentatious show of how much we are able to say, of our beautiful words, of what we know, of our songs, of our voices. It has to be something simplistic and humble. Because we have to recognize our place in the universe as a tiny, minute particle being manifested in a human body that, although minute, crucial for the function of the entire cosmos. And we have to realize this in our prayer. When we think about this, we have to be humble and not think and not carry within us any feelings that we may harbor of anger or grief, because a prayer that originates from an impure heart is not going to go past that atmospheric limit of the earth. It'll be stuck in this earthly environment because it'll be a mundane prayer, because it is dirtied. It is filled with the sedimentation of these emotions that we have with other people on this planet. We have to have a purified heart. Because why are we going to look at the speck of dust in someone else's eye when we have a beam or a plank in our own eye? We have to look first at our defects, our flaws, before we say anything. In our prayers, we have to ask for guidance, ask to resist the temptations of this world, the desires, ask for guidance, ask for help and assistance. This is what it's so important about prayer. And so go into your room, pray to your Father who is unseen. Then your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you, because he knows that you're being sincere. You can say beautiful words, but God sees past the words. The spirits who are surrounding us, the elevated and greater spirits, they're able to see what is within us, because our thoughts are photographed around us. We emanate these thoughts and the things we are truly feeling, and they can see that we are not balanced, we're not in harmony. And for this very reason, our prayer does not really reach that transdimensional transfer. You don't connect to that cosmic Wi-Fi, and you're not uploading and downloading. You're still stuck in this local area network, which is the earth. You're still limited here. Then your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you. And when you pray, do not keep babbling like pagans, for they think they will be heard because of their many words. Prayers don't have to be overlong. A prayer could constitute 2 words. Thank you. When something good happens to us in our lives, when the nuisances of a certain situation don't affect us, that's a moment we need to stop and say, thank you, God. Thanks for this moment that I was not affected by this. Or thanks for this opportunity. Thank you for having blessed me with this wonderful family and this existence. Thank you for so many things. It's a quick 2-worded prayer that can mean so much more than a drawn-out exhortation just because it is some passage in a religious book in a different language. So let us always keep it simplistic and humble and sincere, because that's what's really important. Do not be like them, for your Father knows what you need before you ask Him. God knows everything we need before we ask Him. But that isn't to say that we shouldn't ask anything and we shouldn't even pray. Because many of us could say, why do I need to pray? Because God knows everything that I need. So I shouldn't need to say or ask or do anything. He already knows. Okay, if you take that logic to the extreme, then we could just become automatons and not do anything. A lightning could hit us. We don't even need to avoid it because it's divine providence. God knows what He's doing. So I can just stand here in the middle of traffic and wait for a car to hit me, because if I'm not supposed to die at that moment, I'm not going to die because God is the one who's overseeing everything. Well, that's not exactly how it works, is it? Because God gave us intelligence. God gave us limbs, legs, and arms for a reason, for us to put into work that which we need to develop here on earth. So He gave us all these faculties for us to do what? Sit and wait for things.